This is Malcolm341. In today's video, we're going to look at a free update to the UV Mapping Toolbox. I've added transfer UVs to multiple objects and some other useful features, so let's check it out. To get to the UV Mapping Toolbox, if you own the full Mega Script Pack, you come up here and you click the UV Map icon. That loads the tool. And one thing I want to mention is this tool has had a lot of updates. We're on version 2.0 at this point. And so I've needed to split up all of the different updates into different YouTube videos because as I add new features, I need to make a new video. And that's not ideal, but some of those videos would be super long if it was all every feature in one because there's just so much stuff in here now. But what you can do at any time is you can click the Click Here for Help button, and that'll launch a help window, and every single button in the interface is described in text format here. As well, at the bottom, you can see there's the links to all the YouTube videos. So if you forget how to use something or want to learn this tool for the first time, this is a good place to start, or just watch the YouTube videos. Okay, to start, you'll notice I've combined the camera mapping and best plane mapping buttons into a single line here, into a split button, because I needed to make room for some new buttons down here, and I didn't find I was using these options all that often, but if you're looking for them, they've just moved up here. This used to be called Planar Map C, and now I've just more descriptively named it as Camera and Best Plane. So just a heads up. Okay, so we have a new section in the tool called Transfer UVs From, and then you have two buttons there. So Transfer UVs from Meshes or Transfer UVs from Groups. And I had a couple requests from a bunch of different people. Some people just wanted the transfer UVs built into this tool because they like to use it. And I had a couple other requests from people that wanted the transfer UVs tool to work on multiple meshes. And so I've added that in because Maya's default tool doesn't do that for whatever reason. Okay, so first I'm just going to select my mesh here that has good UVs, and then all of these ones here, see they've just got like wonky UVs or whatever, corrupt messes. So I'm just going to select the model that has already been UV'd. I'm going to turn on the checker map so I can see what I'm doing and so you guys can see what I'm doing. So whatever, the UVs are laid out the way that I'd like them for this object. And then I want to transfer UVs to all of these identical objects in one click. And on top of that, I also wanted to demonstrate that I've rotated these all kind of arbitrarily. And I'm just going to select those and go to Modify and Freeze Transforms just so we can show that the tool is working. And then I'm going to go to Edit and I'm going to delete history. So to use the tool is pretty simple. Select the mesh with the good UVs first, and then select all the meshes that you want to transfer those UVs to. And it will take that and put it onto all of those. And then you just click the Transfer UVs from Meshes. So click this, and boom, there you go. Everything is perfectly UV mapped exactly the same as the master one. And we're all good, and everything looks good there, and it took no time. It's instantaneous, so this is super helpful. Another nice thing the script does is it actually deletes the history off of all the meshes, because I don't know if you've ever used transfer UVs in Maya, but it's kind of a nightmare. After you transfer the UVs, Maya starts to run really slow, and you've got all these weird connections and stuff, and it often leads to mistakes on my end or whatever. So you can see these meshes are all transferred their UVs, but they're all nice and clean. They have no history, and there's no weird connections or anything. And what's also nice is if your mesh has rigging on it or skinning, it will leave that rigging and skinning alone. So if you transfer UVs onto something that's already been bound to a bone or whatever, it won't delete the history. So it delineates between the two. So here's my one with wacky UVs, and you can see I've got like a little bit of rigging in there. And if I select this guy and then select that guy and then click transfer from meshes, boom, it transfers the UVs over. And if I select the bone and then rotate, you can see the rigging is maintained, even though the transfer UVs happened. So that's pretty cool. And now I want to show you something that is actually really good about my transfer UVs that has been super frustrating to me. I've been using Maya's transfer UVs and not understanding why sometimes it just doesn't work for whatever reason. For 20 years, I've never understood why I go to transfer UVs in Maya and then nothing happens. It says transfer complete and then like no UVs change. So I recently discovered why that is, and I actually put some error checking into my script so it will tell you when it's going to happen. So basically what the problem is that if there's a different number of verts between the two objects that you're going to transfer to or from or whatever, in Maya, their tool will silently fail and you'll just have no idea. You don't know why it didn't work. It just didn't work. So in my tool, if that happens, you can see here, I don't have a edge loop or whatever, and here I've added one in. So I'm going to select this guy, and then I'm going to click transfer. And then boom, it's actually going to tell you what's wrong. Number of verts must be the same on all objects. Transfer UVs failed. Instead of just saying it completed and not actually doing anything, and then just leaving you kind of hating the tool. I've actually not used transfer UVs for years and years up until now because I was like, it's so inconsistent, it's just going to fail. I'm not even going to bother wasting my time. So now let me show you another trick that I learned about transfer UVs. Watch this. If we go in here and we actually add that ring so the verts match up between the two, or we could have deleted this loop or whatever. It doesn't matter. Basically, as long as the two vert counts are the same, watch this. Select this one. Boom, it works. That will work for the Maya default tool as well, but I don't know, why would you want to use it? This is so much better. Okay, moving along, we have the transfer UVs from groups. So this was another interesting request that I've never needed to do in my career, but this seems like it would be really important in the film industry, which is where the request came from. The artist said in their pipeline, they would have like the model that they're working on, they're UVing, they're texturing, whatever, surfacing, and then there would be like a rigged version already in the shot for the animators and stuff. So they would have like this model in separate individual meshes, and then they would have like this model in separate individual meshes, but this one's been like skinned. And what they wanted to do was, because each part is different, they didn't want to go like transfer this one and then like click the button and then transfer this one and then like click the button and then do that times however many pieces they had. I guess they had like a lot of pieces or whatever. And so what they asked for was, could they just have a group with some meshes in it and another group with some meshes in it, and it would magically transfer each one at a time to the correct mesh in the other group. And so that's working as well. So to use this feature, you have to have the same number of meshes in both groups, and the group name doesn't matter, but the mesh order does. So it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if you did this, whoops, if you move that guy up and it was like that, the script would like copy the wrong UVs to the wrong thing. Actually, it would fail because the vert order is different or whatever. So you just have to make sure that in both groups, the mesh order is the same. That's all you need to worry about. So you can see in group 1, this is where we've got our correct UVs. And then in group 2, this is where we've got our no UVs and we've got our skinning. So first, I'm just going to come up and open the checker map toolbox and turn checker map on and turn on base color so we can see more clearly, and then -1 just so stuff gets bigger. And the reason for this particular demonstration that I'm using this checker map toolbox instead of just the built-in Maya checker is Maya's checker only shows up when you have something selected, and it will be harder to see what happens when I do this demonstration. So this one's kind of more reliable because it actually just remaps the diffuse channel. Okay, so to make this work, you select group 1, followed by group 2. None of the meshes inside, just the groups, and the order matters. So everything from group 1 is going to go to group 2. And like we mentioned, this hierarchy order needs to be exact. And then you come over to transfer UVs from, and you click groups. And boom, in one click, it's gone through all of the individual meshes and transferred them all over exactly what you want. And on top of that, the skinning is preserved, so it's still rigged. So I guess this is pretty helpful when the modeling surfacing team is UVing and texturing this, and the animation team is animating this. Just saves a lot of time having to transfer over because you'd have to do these like one at a time. So hopefully that helps out a bunch of people. We're just going to do another quick demonstration of that to show how to set up one of those groups from scratch because the other scene might have been too complex. So I want these to basically go up to those. So these are all separate meshes, so that's cool. So select those guys, Control G to group them, whatever, group 1, that's good. And then put these guys into group 2. And now we just need to make sure that the order is the same. So if I select cube and cube, yep, sphere and sphere, yep, and then cylinder and cylinder, cool. So yeah, everything's good. So we just select group 1, group 2, click the transfer from groups, and boom, there you go. Individual UV transfer inside of groups. So pretty cool. Okay, and then finally, I have added a bunch of new stuff here under the layout UVs, and this stuff is super useful. So I've stripped this out into individual tick boxes for flip, spin, scale, move, and stack is a new feature. Well, actually, all of these are new features because flip, spin, scale used to be like one tick box, and now it's all separate, and that can really speed up your UV mapping. So the default settings are as they are here. This is going to feel like the tool felt before. If you just click layout UVs, It's going to do what you think. It's going to lay everything out in the 0 to 1, no overlapping. It's going to try to auto rotate stuff, and it's going to flip all those reversed faces and just give you what you expect, a nice UV pack. And one thing that I want to mention here is this whole experience is going to feel way better. I fixed kind of like a bug or an oversight in here where the selection was getting kind of wonky after the layout was complete, and it just felt really clunky. And if you're used to using the tool and you're kind of always just like, when I do the layout, it's kind of like hard to get out of object mode or back into face mode or something, I've fixed all of that. And now it will actually remember your selection, which is super handy. So for example, if I was selecting this face, whatever, here, I'm going to scale it up, rotate it, whatever, it doesn't matter. And then I click layout, it's going to leave that selection. So whatever you were working on, it's going to leave that selection. But more importantly, it's going to leave that selection, but it also doesn't matter what you have selected. It's always going to lay out the whole object. And this is like so nice for me because I really don't like in Maya's when you accidentally select a couple faces and it lays those out over top of everything. And then you have to like go to object mode or you have to select all the UVs or whatever. I just find that really tedious. I almost never want to do that. And so in this tool, no matter what you have selected, if you click layout, oh, it's great, cool. Oh, if you had like one selected, it still lays out. Like it doesn't matter what you have selected. It will remember your selection, but it doesn't work on selected components. It always does the full shell. And I find that to be a lot better. So now that you can individually tick these, let me show you what they do. So for example, I'm going to move this guy out. I'm going to rotate it arbitrarily. I'm going to maybe like flip it. Sure, whatever. I'll grab these guys. I'll flip some of them. I'll grab this, rotate that out like that. I'm going to take this guy and like scale it up super big. And I think that's it. Right. Okay. So I'm going to disable flip, spin, and scale. And this actually allows you to control the UV layout and avoid doing certain things. So if I've turned off flip, spin, scale and I do a layout, it left my manually configured scale, my rotation, and my flipping. So now if I turn flip back on, all these reds are going to get flipped and then laid out. And if I turn spin on, it's going to maybe try to fit these better into the equation. Let's see. Yeah, so it rotated those guys nicely. And then if I turn scale on, it's going to make the texel density even across the whole thing. So it's going to fix this one. So why this is super useful is because when you're done your UV pack, you might want to, let's say, like flip this and leave it flipped. But if you just do a layout, it's always going to force it back. So if you flip this and you're like, yeah, this is a better layout, you can now turn off flip and it's going to maintain that setting. Again, with this, you might want to take these little shells and scale them up to fit in all this wasted space. This is how I do my UV mapping, and I think most of the people in the games industry do. They fill the wasted space with smaller shells. Now, if we turn off scale, it's going to leave that scale and pack it all together. So see, it's actually like filling in more. So you can do more. You can kind of iterate on the pack after you're done, relay out, fill some of that wasted space up. And then on top of that, maybe you found that these shells are actually pack better rotated like this, let's say. But if you have spin on and you do it, it always tries to like flip them back or whatever. So if you rotate them arbitrarily, it will actually try to maintain that if you turn the spin off. So we can do that. Click that. You can get them like that. I don't think you'd want them like that, but sometimes it can be super helpful to stop stuff from spinning or to make sure that it stays vertical instead of horizontal for like this. So you can really fine tune the UV pack after you do the initial layout now that you can fiddle with all of these. I'm going to avoid showing you what move does until after we've looked at stack because it'll make more sense. So first of all, I'm just going to turn all this back onto default and do a layout UVs. Again, it doesn't matter what I have selected here. It's just going to magically work. Boom, there we go. Okay, so this is another interesting thing where like, see the pack this time came up, it's less efficient. And so maybe we turn off spin and we grab these guys, select them and spin them manually and then do a layout. Yeah, and see how much better that got? Just by adjusting a couple shells manually, we get a way better pack. But Maya's default pack wanted to do it some arbitrary way that was less efficient. So always do a little bit of hand editing to your UVs if you need to hit texel density targets. Again, we could come in and fix these too. It looks like Maya didn't really think that that was the best way to go. They wanted to go diagonal. So you could select that and we could say orient. Oops, I guess, what do we need? An edge. Sorry, orient. There we go. And select another edge and orient. Great. So we've got those things rotated. And because spin is turned off, when I go to do a layout, it's going to leave those rotated that way. So again, we got rid of that annoying diagonal rotation that Maya assigned by default in their packing algorithm. Okay, and let's look at the stack feature. So the stack does exactly what you think it does. It stacks similar shells on top of each other. This was super challenging to get this actually working in this UI. So it's pretty cool that we finally got it in here. So all you do is turn on stack, and it's just going to look for shells that are identical or close to identical and stack those on top of each other when it does all the other parts of the recipe. So click layout. And boom, there you go. Everything's stacked on top of each other. And now, for whatever reason, this is a pretty terrible pack. Like, it's awful when you use the stacking stuff. I'm not sure why it comes up like this, but because we have the ability to turn off all this other stuff, we can now kind of adjust this to get an even tighter pack, even with the stacking feature. So I'm going to turn everything off now, including move. So no flipping, no spinning, no scaling. No stacking because it's already stacked. And then I'm also going to turn off move. And what move does is move translates all the shells around and places them. And so we're going to take full manual control over the UV layout at this point and manually pack it. And honestly, that's how I do 99% of my UV layouts. And most people I've met in the games industry do the same because automatic packing just doesn't work. So I'm just going to select this stuff here and whatever, move it down. Grab this one, move this stuff down. Sure, it's looking better. Oh, we could grab this and move this to here, and here, and here. So this is basically how I would have done UV mapping. Like most of the time, I would, whatever, spin this. I would manually pack all this stuff, and then I would scale the shells up. And now what's really cool about the move tool or the move tick box is when you turn the move tick box off, what it does is it will try to uniformly scale the shells up to fill the UV space, but it won't try to move them around and fit them in like Tetris pieces. And what that means is I used to, what you're trying to do is you're trying to make a little square out of this mess so you can uniformly scale it up to fill all the space. So I would move this stuff around, whatever. Let's put something here, whatever. And then before I would select all my UVs, I'd go into the regular scale tool and I'd hold down D to activate pivot mode and I'd hold down X to activate snap to grid. And then I'd move the pivot of the selection down there and then I'd uniformly scale them up. And then, I'd repack some more stuff and uniformly scale them up, trying to get the most useful space. And that was annoying. And it was also kind of error prone. And it's kind of janky. But what's cool is if you turn the move tool off and you manually pack, watch what happens. It does that for you. And then you can try again. You're like, oh, okay, wait, what if I put this Tetris piece here? Because that's the outer bounds. It's too much space. What if I did this and I click layout? Oh, I got a little bit more space. And then I'm like, oh, what if I put this here? Little bit more space, and kind of so on and so forth until you get that manual pack that you're happy with that looks perfect. So this is really cool. This is an unexpected feature that came from designing these other features. So I think this is going to be really helpful. This is basically how I do all my UV layouts in a professional environment or whatever, just a personal project environment. Oh, there's one little piece there. It's cool because you can see where all the bounds are and kind of fix those and then just go, boom, relayout. And we're gaining UV space every time we click that relayout button. So super powerful. I hope everyone enjoys this. I know I do. Okay, so there's one last thing that I want to mention about the stacking. When we tried to stack that object, it was awful. You saw all the wasted space or whatever that it left. This doesn't appear to be my script. This appears to be how the stacking tool works inside of Maya's own layout. And with certain shapes, it just leaves all those gaps for whatever reason. So you can see I've got a sphere here that was automatic map. So it's just got some shells or whatever. And if you have everything set to default, so we've got everything on, and we do a layout, that's the layout that you get. But if you turn on stack, watch what happens here. You get a nice one. It's all nice and filled in as much as it can. So I'm not too sure why it bugs out on certain shaped packs, but I don't think it's an actual bug in my version of the tool. I think it's just built into the default Maya. And so you can use these other buttons to manually pack those anyways, which is probably what you want to do in the end. So hopefully that helps. If you've already purchased the Megascript pack or the UV Mapping pack, this will be a free update, so you just need to download the same file again from your original email link to get the new stuff. If you haven't purchased the script yet, you can grab the script by itself in the UV Mapping pack, or you can get it in the Megascript pack, so take your pick. Thanks very much for watching this video. Without viewers like you, this channel would not exist. If you like this video and enjoy the channel, please support me by purchasing something from the online store. Each purchase goes towards creating more video content and keeps the channel ad-free. See you next time. Have a phenomenal day.